For $1, you didn't get luxury, you got survival. A narrow bed with a straw mattress, a thin blanket, and a shared room full of snoring cowboys. The walls were wooden.
What could $1 buy you today? Maybe a bottle of water, maybe nothing at all. But in the late 1800s, in the heart of the American Wild West, $1 could buy you something far more valuable than comfort. It could buy you a roof over your head, a bed for the night, and a chance to see the next sunrise. The Wild West was not a place built for ease. It was built for survival. Frontier towns appeared almost overnight, fueled by gold rushes, cattle trails, and the expansion of the railroad. Men traveled long distances through deserts, mountains, and lawless land, often with nothing but what they could carry. When night came, sleeping outside meant risking cold, wild animals, thieves, or worse. That is where the Wild West Hotel came in. A hotel in those days was not a place of luxury. It was often a simple wooden building, roughly constructed, with thin walls and creaking floors. A flickering lantern hung outside the door, signaling shelter to weary travelers. Inside, the air smelled of dust, sweat, kerosene, and old wood. You would step up to a rough wooden counter and slide a single silver dollar toward the clerk. No paperwork, no questions, cash only. For $1, you were allowed to stay the night. That dollar did not buy comfort. It bought permission to exist indoors until morning. Most Wild West hotels did not offer private rooms. Instead, they had shared sleeping quarters, large rooms filled with narrow beds or bunks lined up side by side. Sometimes 6 people shared the room, sometimes 12, sometimes more. The bed itself was simple, a wooden frame with a mattress stuffed with straw, hay, or horsehair. It was uneven and uncomfortable, often filled with insects. Fleas and bedbugs were common, and travelers learned to accept itching as part of the experience. You were given one blanket, thin wool, scratchy against the skin. In winter, it did little to stop the cold air that slipped through cracks in the walls. If the wind picked up, you felt it all night long.
Have you ever wondered what a single dollar could buy you in the 1950s? Today we usually think of a dollar as a small amount, maybe enough for a candy bar or part of a cup of coffee. But in the 1950s, that same dollar was incredibly powerful. It could pay for gas, buy food, and even cover entertainment, all with money to spare. In this voice narrative, we'll take a journey back in time to explore what $1 could buy in the 1950s, things like groceries, a movie ticket, several bottles of soda, and even multiple gallons of gasoline. We'll also think about what that tells us about how prices have changed over time. This isn't just a history lesson, it's a window into everyday life in a different era, when wages, prices, and lifestyles were all very different from what most of us experience today. By the end of this narration, you'll have a vivid mental picture of the value of a dollar in the mid-20th century, and a deeper understanding of how far your money could stretch back then. Let's go back to the 1950s and pick up where that single dollar could still buy you real value, real goods, and real experiences. Let's start with one of the most basic daily needs, food and drink. In the 1950s, a typical loaf of bread cost around 15 to 18 cents. This means that for a single dollar, you could buy about 5 or 6 loaves of bread, enough to feed a family for several days. Bread was a staple for many meals, and its low price made it a cornerstone of the family budget. Milk was another commonly purchased item. A gallon of milk often sold for about 90 cents, meaning that with $1, you could buy a full gallon and still have change left over. Milk was a dietary staple, especially for growing children. Eggs were also inexpensive by modern standards. A dozen fresh eggs could be purchased for around 30 cents. So if you had $1, you could buy 3 dozen eggs, enough to feed a whole family breakfast for a couple of days. Let's not forget popular beverages. One of the most iconic drinks of the era was Coca-Cola. A bottle of Coke often cost just 5 cents. That means with a single dollar, you could enjoy 20 bottles of Coke, a refreshing treat for yourself or to share with friends. Snacks like ice cream were also quite affordable. A scoop at a local ice cream parlor might cost about 10 to 20 cents. With a dollar, you could enjoy 5 to 10 scoops of ice cream, maybe enough for a small family outing. Grocery stores of the time sold all sorts of canned goods, too. A can of soup could cost around 10 to 15 cents. Vegetables, fruits, and pantry staples were all priced with affordability in mind. So when you imagine walking down the aisles of a 1950s grocery store, dollar in hand, you can picture how many essentials you could pick up, dozens of staple items, without breaking the bank.